Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I'm here to actually cover two different movie trailers that dropped this week. Or one of them dropped the week prior, but I'm covering them both together because, first of all, they're both about topics that mean a lot to me, and second, I feel that they do have something in common that I'll get to discussing by the end of this video. These are, of course, the trailers for Looney Tunes: The Day the Earth Blew Up, and Superman, formerly Superman Legacy, but apparently the Legacy part got dropped when I wasn't looking. I'm going to start with The Day the Earth Blew Up because that's the trailer that dropped first. Now, this movie has had a lot of Looney Tunes fans really excited because it's the first Looney Tunes movie to be released theatrically that's comprised 100% of original animation. Other previous theatrical Looney Tunes works have either been compilation movies with some new animation built around pre-existing shorts that were repackaged, or they've been live-action animation combos. So, to have a Looney Tunes movie that's finally like a completely original package, that's pretty significant, and it's amazing it took this long to happen. Although, it looked for a while like it might not happen. After the AT&T Time Warner merger, Zaslav was axing projects left and right, and a lot of them were animated. Quite a few of them were Looney Tunes related. It's actually kind of a miracle that The Day the Earth Blew Up survived, and that's only because it's not actually being distributed by Warner Brothers. It was apparently purchased by Ketchup Entertainment. I've never heard of them before, but they got their hands on it and they're going to be the ones releasing this movie into the world. And after a significant delay, we finally got a trailer in English. And I specify English because there was a German trailer that dropped, but obviously I couldn't understand that one. I don't speak German. So we finally have an English trailer, as well as a release date for next year. Although, apparently it's going to get a limited theatrical release this year, so it can qualify for an Oscar. But now that we actually have the trailer, and we've gotten at least two clips uploaded for everyone to see, I can now share my thoughts on if I think this looks like it's going to be good. So my overall thoughts are that while I am still hopeful, there are things in the trailer that have me a bit concerned. First of all, it's an incredibly frantic trailer. Like, they are trying to specifically market it to children, because here in the West we all think cartoons are for children, except those of us who actually do appreciate animation. Yeah, that's always kind of bothered me. So I do have to take that into account, of course, but even taking that into account, I see certain things in the trailer that kind of make me wonder, because they don't really feel like Looney Tunes. They feel a little too, I don't want to say modern necessarily, but feels like they belong somewhere else, these jokes. Like, there's plenty of slapstick and, like, baseline humor in classic Looney Tunes, sure, but there was never much of an emphasis on the buttocks, nor were there blows to the crotch or anything, which are significantly featured in this trailer and are clearly meant to get a laugh out of the audience. And, you know, context does matter. Maybe in context these moments are going to be great, but it does feel a little out of place for Looney Tunes, if you ask me. Granted, when the Looney Tunes had their golden age, it was a very different time. That sort of humor wasn't necessarily, well, not even necessarily. It wasn't done. Not even in pre-code times all that much. Pre-code times, sure, you could get away with quite a bit, but there was still a certain level of decorum that was held, even so. With the Looney Tunes, even as they advanced through the ages, their stuff, or stuff that was adjacent to them, like Tiny Toon Adventures and Animaniacs and so on, like, they would sort of start to venture into those areas, but they never went full-blown into it. They would do it in a way that actually felt natural to the tone and the style. Here, it feels like they're kind of going a bit too almost dare I say, Nickelodeon-esque, which Nickelodeon certainly has its place in the pop culture zeitgeist, but Nickelodeon, nothing Nickelodeon did was really Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes was its own thing. Of course, I also have to remember that The Day the Earth Blew Up is directly spun off from Looney Tunes cartoons, which was the latest iteration of the characters, and, you know, it also kind of pushed the envelope. While it was very well made on a technical level, good voice acting and everything, you know, they did push the envelope, although for some reason they refused to push the envelope on certain things. Like, apparently you could have an episode where Bugs Bunny is interacting with actual decaying human organs, and later on have a scene where it looks like his body is getting brutally mangled by a monster, but Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam aren't allowed to use their guns because, you know, that's pushing the line and might scar the children. Never mind the show was TV PG and therefore not specifically aimed at kids anyway. But overall, like, keeping that in mind, it's not necessarily a surprise that this movie is going in those directions. So I am concerned about what kind of movie it's actually going to be. But at the same time, there's stuff in there that really does have me thinking these guys know what they're doing. Again, speaking on a technical level, it looks amazing. The animation, I have seen no real issues with it that stand out to me. It looks fluid, it's vibrant. It even recreates that thing where, you know how in classic cartoons you had the backdrop that was painted in a very detailed depth of vision style and everything, but the characters who were ink drawn on cells, they sort of stood out from the image, not like they didn't belong, but they clearly were separate from it. That is recreated here, very deliberately, where the background elements and the characters in the foreground have that sort of stylistic disparity. And I don't think that's a bad thing, mind you. I love the way those old cartoons look. I actually think that as animation has progressed and there's been more of an effort to make the foreground characters and background elements look like they belong in the same setting, it actually has taken something away because now the characters don't pop out of the background as much. So to see that recreated here so precisely, while still using modern techniques to do stuff you wouldn't necessarily have been able to do back in the day, that is impressive. I can also look to certain clips that have been released, like specifically the one where Porky and Daffy are in that roadside diner and they first meet Petunia. There's some good things in there, like the way Porky views Petunia versus the reality of what Petunia is doing, or just the way the three of them are bouncing off each other even though they've only just met. It does work. That scene in particular really does work, at least on its own. In greater context, who knows? And of course there's the fact that they're going for a more retro style. Not just retro in terms of imitating the classic Looney Tunes, but also retro science fiction. They're not trying to be like modern Marvel or the Dune movies or anything. They're aiming more for something that could have been made in the 50s, let's say. Even the title, The Day the Earth Blew Up, is an homage to the famous sci-fi movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. And that's very underground these days. It's not popular. It's respected by those who know it, but not necessarily the trendy thing. So that also tells me that the people who made this aren't necessarily interested in chasing trends. They want to make the kind of thing they wanted to make, and that just happens to be a retro sci-fi story with the Looney Tunes in it. So at the moment, I'm not sure what to make of this one. Half of what I see has me thinking that this might be the Looney Tunes movie we've been waiting our whole lives for, and the other half makes me wonder if maybe Warner Brothers let it go for a reason. I'm just not sure at this point. But then, of course, we have the trailer for Superman, and it seems that every time there's a Superman movie trailer that's released for a new iteration, it's always going to bring people out of the woodwork to comment on it. Only this time it's even more controversial because James Gunn is involved. In fact, James Gunn, as I'm sure you know by now, is overseeing the entire DC cinematic universe, whatever it's gonna wind up being called in the long run. So that's had a lot of people skeptical because the comic book material James Gunn has made up to this point, stuff like the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and most recently Creature Commandos, which I'll be commenting on in a completely different video, they've all kind of followed a very similar formula. They have commonalities throughout that people look at and think, okay, he can do that pretty well, he's clearly comfortable here, but can he do Superman? Can he do Batman? Can he actually make all of these other characters work? Obviously, he's not going to write and direct every single thing that happens, but he is still the executive producer at the moment for DC stuff. So he's gonna have a hand in it somehow. From the beginning, I've looked at what he has planned for this first wave, which I think they're titling Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, although that might have changed. Again, this movie was originally called Superman Legacy, and that changed, so who knows. But I think, based on what he's set up to this point, his announcements have run the gamut from good ideas to bad ideas to unusual ideas to ideas we have to wait and see about. For example, good idea, turning the spotlight on other DC characters, including lesser known ones. I am all for that. It can't be all Batman all the time. There are a lot of great DC characters, either homegrown or acquired from other companies, that deserve their time in the spotlight. Bad idea, Damian Wayne being the first Robin that they're going to introduce. Nothing I have read or seen with that character in it has made me excited to see him in the movies. I do not think he's a likable character at all. So he's kind of a controversial choice for the first Robin to appear in a movie since 1997. No, Joseph Gordon-Levitt doesn't count, neither does Teen Titans Go, and I shouldn't have to explain why. Weird idea. Having the Authority be part of that first wave. The Authority, of course, originated in Wildstorm, and they were supposed to be a deconstructionist, edgy analog for the Justice League. So each member was a deconstructionist, edgy analog for a member of the Justice League, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and so on. So I know Wildstorm stuff has been incorporated into the mainstream DC universe, but for the movies, having them coexist alongside the originals and having the Authority apparently exist before the Justice League does, I find that to be a little odd, and I'm not sure how they're going to make that play out. Although on a similar tack to that, the wait and see idea, giving different directors and writers the freedom to do their own visions and not restricting them in terms of rating. Most comic book movies aim for a PG-13 rating. James Gunn has said that he's not going to limit people, and if a movie is its best when it's rated R, then it's going to be rated R. He already said that the Swamp Thing movie that they're planning for this phase is going to be a very dark R-rated horror movie. Now, he says that, of course, but is he going to stick to it? Only time will tell. So I would say my views on James Gunn taking over DC have been pretty moderate, but a lot of people have been skeptical, particularly about him taking the reins for Superman. Because like I said, the stuff he's made up to this point doesn't seem like it would fit the style of the Big Blue Boy Scout. But now we actually have the trailer. And you know, trailers for James Gunn comic book movies up to this point have been fairly accurate representations of what we're going to see, particularly with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So, assuming that the Superman trailer is following along that trend, it does look like it'll be an accurate representation of what Gunn's vision will be. Now, not everything in the trailer looks great, mind you. The obvious wig that David Cornsweet is wearing as Clark Kent sticks out like a sore thumb, of course. The CGI might not all be completely finished, although the majority of it looks good. The kaiju that appears, and yes, apparently Superman's gonna fight a kaiju on the big screen in this one, and I'm looking forward to that, but that thing looks good. Other stuff, though, it's a bit of a coin flip. And of course, the ridiculous outfits that they're having Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl wear to match Mr. Terrific, which, you know, it looks right on him because that's his costume. But putting them in the same outfits, I think, is weird. I'm holding out hope that there's going to be some sort of plot-relevant reason for them to be in those outfits, and hopefully to be in their classic outfits by the end, but we will see. Overall, though, I do think this trailer looked really good. I think this could be a really good movie. Now, obviously, it's got a long way to go before it measures up to the 1978 movie directed by Richard Donner. That movie is like in a class unto itself. I'm sure we can all agree. But it at least looks like it's going in that general direction. And it also looks like it's embracing some of the more unusual aspects of the comic books. Like krypto is in it. And krypto is definitely one of the stranger ideas associated with the Superman mythos, but one that, when it's done well, is done really, really well. Actually, the introduction of krypto in the trailer is another point where I think maybe James Gunn really is kind of branching out a little, trying to do something different from his main formula and actually try to get Superman like Superman. See, one of the things James Gunn is known for in his comic book movies is a very irreverent sense of humor. In fact, a lot of people say that he is kind of the one, maybe not who generated Marvel humor, but certainly popularized it by having a bunch of comedic moments throughout the movie, sometimes at points that undercut the drama. Now, if you actually watch the movies, you know that a character in a James Gunn comic book film that undercuts drama with comedy usually is doing so for a reason, and because they're trying to avoid facing the drama. But that's a different discussion. Now, in the trailer for Superman, if there was any point something like that was going to happen, it would have been the introduction of krypto, where Superman is laying on the ground, broken, bleeding, helpless. He whistles for krypto, who comes running in this like really impressive shot where he's kicking up a snowstorm behind him. And when he gets there, at first he looks like he wants to play, because, you know, he's a dog. Dogs like to play. I know, I'm a dog owner. And yet, I was bracing myself for the idea that krypto was going to just be playful and ignorant to Superman's plight, and Superman was just going to kind of roll his eyes and be like, of course. But that's not the case. Instead, even though krypto initially looks playful, Superman hands him the hem of his cape and says, "Home, take me home." And krypto does that thing that dogs do where it kind of looks at the cape like, I want to bite it, then grabs it and starts bringing him off. And it's played completely serious. It's not played for laughs. It's not, hey, hey, look at how ridiculous it is that there's a little puppy dog in a cape who's dragging Superman through the ice. This is played dramatically. Of course, I do expect there to be humor in the movie, but it seems like overall the tone that this trailer is putting forward, and it is 100% tone, mind you, is that the movie's going to be taking the source material very seriously, and it wants to get the character of Superman right. That's at least how it's looking to me. Anything could happen at this point. Like I said, the trailer is 100% tone. It doesn't really tell us much about plot. We don't get to see that many performances beyond certain visual aspects. But on the whole, it seems like Gunn is at least trying. Yeah, I know Creature Commandos has given people a certain first impression, and like I said, I'll be covering Creature Commandos in a different video. But this trailer has me hopeful. I'm at least cautiously optimistic. Now, the reason I wanted to cover both of these trailers together is because, as I thought about it, it dawns on me that there's a lot riding on both of these movies. Like I said, Looney Tunes The Day the Earth Blew Up is the first fully originally animated Looney Tunes theatrical movie ever. Superman is a reboot of the entire DC universe, coming at a time where comic book movies are not looking so hot, and DC in particular has had a lengthy string of failures. Now, Superman is supposed to be the beginning of the new DC universe. Creature Commandos technically came first, and if you want to get really technical, it was preceded by the other James Gunn works like the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. But pretty much everybody has agreed that Superman is where it's going to officially begin. That is the make or break movie. And as for Looney Tunes, like I said, after the AT&T merger, it seemed like David Zaslav wanted nothing to do with the Looney Tunes at all and canceled all of their projects, even ones like Coyote vs. Acme that were completed. And it's kind of miraculous that The Day the Earth Blew Up survived at all. But recently, at least as far as I've heard, Warner Brothers has announced that there are plans to do stuff with the Looney Tunes in the near future. So even though The Day the Earth Blew Up is not being distributed by Warner Brothers, because they gave up that right, I know they're paying attention to how it's going to do. So basically, both of these movies could determine a lot about what the future of entertainment will look like from 2025 onward. If they succeed, we might see a new golden age of both DC superheroes and Looney Tunes. If they fail, however, Gunn's DC universe will be scrapped. Gunn's career might very well be over because he killed a cinematic universe before it could even start. And we will just have to wait for Matt Reeves to deliver a second Batman movie. And the Looney Tunes will likely remain collecting dust in the vault because the studio didn't want anything to do with them in the first place. You know, as a fan of both DC and Looney Tunes, I want to see them both succeed, but I also want to see them succeed on merit. I want Superman and The Day the Earth Blew Up to be good. I understand the skepticism, I have some of it myself. I do want to hope that the hype is real, though, that these movies will work and they will revitalize these different characters and their worlds. Only time will tell, of course, but for now, I just remain cautiously optimistic. Perhaps with some greater emphasis on the cautious part. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.